Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. I thank you so much for tuning into today's video. This week I'm going to be sharing a combination of the 2020 International Women's Day, the March protest that took place here in Guadalajara and across Mexico, the March 9th movement which is following, and a little bit of my own personal story time. So usually on every other International Women's Day is usually celebrated by empowering, lifting up, and really loving on all the amazing women, including yourself, that are in your lives. And this year had a little bit of a different effect on me simply because I was now a woman who has lived in a country that did not have the same standard of women's equality rights that I grew up in, and that was kind of a big shock to me. So it kind of took me to a little bit of a deeper place of standing up for women's rights. Probably might know that Mexico is facing some intense femicide, and it is quite scary. It is quite heartbreaking. You know, it's something that I wish we didn't have to talk about, but unfortunately it is a really big issue. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit to the days leading up to now. So last week I took the girls and myself to meet with a couple of other amazing women that I have the pleasure of knowing here to paint meaningful words and phrases all over our bodies in black ink. So we wrote messages like ni una más, ni una menos, not one more, not one less. Some women wrote who they were doing it for, you know, my mom, my grandmothers, my children, my friends. And it was just a really powerful way to kick off the movement, to kick off the project. On March 8th, which is International Women's Day, all of the women all over Mexico, it was astonishing to see how many photos were actually uploaded, shared a similar style photo, black and white photo, with their bodies to whatever extent they wanted to expose and their words of choice. So I brought the girls with me to this part of the Women's Day movement because, you know, may we know these women, be these women, and raise these women. So it was really important for me for the girls to have that experience as well. And of course I will share our pictures here. So across my chest it says ni una más, so not one more, as well as mi cuerpo, mis reglas, so my body, my rules, which was a very important and strong message for my girls, especially growing up in the day and age that we do and the issues that we're facing now. So on Sunday, March 8th at noon, we all posted social media wide our photos. It was a really strong message. It was really amazing to see everyone come together over social media platforms. And then later that evening, see so many women and even some men come together for this common cause.
So this evening we are marching the streets of Guadalajara, Mexico, in fight for women's rights.
Over 25,000 people, women, were marching in the streets of Guadalajara. That was just in the city that we are in. As I mentioned, this was kind of my first year of actively participating in International Women's Day. That was more than just lifting others up, but taking that other side and really defending women's rights.
No son muertas, son asesinadas. No son muertas, son asesinadas.
So much energy powered through the streets that it had me in tears at some points, because it was very strong and very passionate and overwhelming and just really amazing. I'm trying to put words into it, but I really just have no words for the experience. Really glad, grateful that I was able to be a part of this opportunity, and even more so that my eyes have now been opened to more of the issue. Just to add, I guess, my 2 cents into the protest, a little bit disheartened by the amount of vandalism that went on. It was just something that didn't sit right with me, with the smashing of the windows and spray painting and threatening gas bombs, and I don't know. Anyway, that's just like my little bit of 2 cents. In that same token, I just want to point out that I did not bring my girls to the march for that specific reason, just because I didn't really know what to expect 100%, and of course I would never want to put them in harm's way. So usually on Mondays I go and volunteer at the immigration center here in Guadalajara, but that did not happen today. March 9th is the Día Sin Mujeres, or the El Día Sin Nosotras, the day without us, the day without us women. And it was supposed to happen that the girls did not attend everything like school, work, taking errands, taking the bus. If you could avoid leaving your home today, it was encouraged to stay home. I'm actually recording this on March 9th. That's why I have so much free time, because I am just home all day. And so we kind of took this opportunity, this kind of homebound day, to get some artistic flow going through us, and even more fitting, we spent the morning painting pieces for baby's birth space, and they were really excited to make paintings for baby. So we got Luna's beautiful picture. Wow, I love it. Can you see that? Okay, let's show Luxie's. Come here, Lux. Come here. Sorry. And there's Luxie's. Wow, those are beautiful. We're gonna hang them in the birth space.
Okay.
Yeah? We did have a good International Women's Day. I really did like the idea of standing up for these women's rights and things that I wasn't made aware of before moving here. And it also brought up a good point that I have been meaning to share for quite a while now. I just have not. So if you don't follow me on social media, you should if you aren't already. But a couple weeks ago, I posted a story teaser about an incident that happened, and then I never got around to actually telling the full story. I thought this was a good opportunity in conjunction with International Women's Day and the 9th movement to share a personal experience with you. So it probably has been a good month or so since this happened, but for a few days after, for sure, I was really trying to shake that feeling of unease, and it just was not going away. So that was one of the for sure signs that I needed to share my story, as big or as little as it is or could have been. We went to Soriana one Sunday. Soriana is our grocery store. We go there for our groceries, usually on Sundays before we have to get ready for school the next week. As we entered the grocery store, Jerry and the girls veered off one way to go check out the toys, and I went with the cart to start the actual grocery shopping. So the first aisle I went down, I noticed a man, which didn't seem off at all. I mean, it was a Sunday. There was quite a few people there. It was actually quite a busy day that I do recall. He was wearing a black hoodie with the hood up and his hands in the pocket. Almost too stereotypical for the situation. Just to give you some background info, I weave in and out of the aisles. Doesn't matter if I have one thing to get or 50. I usually take a tour of the entire grocery store. As I'm doing my walking, I noticed him in the first aisle, didn't notice much, friendly smile, kept on going. As I came around the second aisle, he came around the opposite side and kind of met me in the middle. He did have quite a piercing stare at me at one point in our paths crossing. Didn't think too much of it. I get a lot of stares, and to be honest, I've just kind of gotten used to it over the past year, and it doesn't really faze me anymore. But I did notice that this guy was looking quite intently at me. Anyway, so I continued on. Coming around to the third aisle, he meets me yet again, and he is just awkwardly pacing back and forth. So at this time I did get a little bit of a uneasy intuition feeling. And I just kind of checked it in the back, made a mental note of it. We're at about aisle 4 or 5, and this man is meeting me at every single aisle at this point. He was not with anyone that I saw. He wasn't with a wife, a daughter, a friend. He was simply just strolling up and down the aisles just as I would, but without any intention to actually buy groceries. I was adding things to my cart and he was just following me around the store. And I think he's starting to notice I'm catching on to how obvious this is. And so he picks up a Pepsi off the shelf and walks about halfway down the aisle. And he's behind me at this point, and as I'm turning, I'm kind of watching in my side view mirror. And he puts the Pepsi back on the shelf and continues walking. He did this with a loaf of bread as well. Also took a good 10 minutes really eyeing up all his selections of pasta. He was really asphyxiated by all the options of pasta, and still has nothing in a basket or a cart or even his hands to show for his shopping. So at this point, Jerry and the girls come up and meet up with me. We are almost to the bakery aisle, which is kind of our last stop out the grocery store. We usually get a donut or a treat or something. And I said to Jerry as soon as he met up with me that I think this man is following me, but I don't want to seem like I'm overreacting or making a big deal of it, because maybe it's absolutely nothing. And I'm the kind of person who just really likes to avoid conflict and leave the situation. Jerry became quite aware of this man and how he was following me and staring at me. We put the girls in a cart. They were just walking with us, but we stuck them in a cart. As a mom, my kids were my first priority. I honestly, at the time, didn't even really think about my safety. I was more worried about them. Once this man noticed that Jerry was with me, he kind of backed off a little bit, gave me some distance. So as we went up to the till, I hadn't seen him in a while, so I thought, sweet, maybe he left, gave up, I don't know. I swear it was like something out of a movie. He had a magazine held up to his face, and you could tell he was peeking over the open magazine to see whereabouts I was or whereabouts my family was. We kind of snuck into the priority lane for elderly people, handicapped, and pregnant people. So I kind of took advantage of that. We snuck in there. We had less than 20 items, and we just kind of stayed low behind the register. I mean, there's rows and rows and rows of cashiers. So we kind of dodged his sight at that point, and then we went around the entire parking lot through the opposite exit that we came in through to get to our car in case he had seen that we left. And we drove off, and that was the end of it. Thank goodness that was the end of it. It could have ended way different. There are other factors to put into place, like if he had a partner of some sort waiting, what his intentions really were, and just kind of the vibe he gave off. It was just not a very comfortable situation, and I don't wish that feeling of unease upon anyone. Of course, after this happened, I scared the crap out of myself and went home and looked into missing women reports in Guadalajara and kind of what the crime rate for women's homicides and femicide has been. And I was disgustingly surprised at some of the results that I found, which kind of led me to this stance that I took on this year's International Women's Day and how I participated in using my voice this year. So I did want to share that with you, for anybody traveling, women traveling alone. There's a point where, I mean, you can't be a Rapunzel and locked in your tower for the rest of time. You have to go out, you have to live, you have to continue on your day-to-day things. But at the same time, really being aware, being cautious, making safe moves. If you have the choice to run your errands in the daylight instead of when the sun sets, kind of an obvious option there. If you have the option to go with a group of people or at least one more person, just making smart moves. So that is kind of all I wanted to say in regards to International Women's Day. There is so much more I could say in regards to this topic. I did want to share my previous experience as well as where I stood this year in regards to voicing my opinion about women's rights and what's going on here in Mexico. As I mentioned before, may we know them, may we be them, and may we raise them. It is such a blessing to be a mother to two girls who will one day grow up into be women and hopefully have their boundaries and their rights set for them. We have come so far as women, and I am incredibly proud of the matriarchy and the ancestors that have done their work before me. But that being said, we have a ways to go. So yeah, I think those are all my thoughts for today. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. If you aren't subscribed to my channel, make sure you do so and tune in every week for a new Mama Om video. How I